All right, welcome to Ranting and Raving. We'll get back to our regularly scheduled Saints slash NFL content here soon, but since it's the playoffs, thought I'd have a little bit of fun and talk some basketball. So, two of the best teams in the league this year, throughout the entire season, um, both went out pretty sorry in the playoffs, and it's actually for a lot of the same reasons, over even though they're different. There's a lot of parallels, and those two teams are the Cleveland Cavaliers and the Boston Celtics. Both of them were pretty much dominant throughout the regular season. Um, so why is it that both teams had an early playoff exit? Boston's the defending champs, and obviously, Tatum's injury is part of it, but Tatum's injury isn't all of it. They were going to lose that game even before Tatum got hurt, and they were going to be down 3-1. And then of course he got hurt, and that sucks. But how and why were they down or about to be down 3-1 to a team that they had obliterated pretty much throughout the entire regular season? I think they played four times. They played one game kind of close, and basically outside of one game, they got dominated. And the same thing for the Cavaliers. Now the Pacers actually dominated them in the regular season as well. It very much was a case of really bad matchup, but there actually are reasons beyond just, well, Boston just didn't shoot well, and that's why they lost to the Knicks. And like, there's an element of that, but it goes a little bit deeper than that. So I kind of want to break it down into three things, and then I'll expand on it. So one is both teams slash organizations, front office, etc., um, have severely undervalued and underestimated how important having players on your team can handle. And I'll expand on what that means in a minute, because it doesn't necessarily mean what I think a lot of people think it means, and frankly, what a lot of players seem to think it means. Having a handle is a real thing, but it's not what some people think it is. So that's one. The second reason is an over reliance on the three. And again, we'll expand on these in a minute, but the over reliance on the 3 point shot doesn't mean threes are bad. Doesn't mean like this is going to be some dumbass Shaq or Charles. I don't think a shooting team can win a championship. Warriors dynasty. Cavs made the finals all those years. Miami, when LeBron and Wade were there, were shooting a ton of threes. San Antonio, that beat them, basically blitzed teams from there. Like, it's not about being a shooting team. It's about being a complete team. And that's actually the element all of those teams had that Cleveland and the Celtics didn't have. Um, and then the third piece is matchup. Like, both of them ran into a team that in very specific ways matches up well with them. And we'll get into that for both teams at the end. So let's first talk about the whole handling problem. I'm going to start with the Celtics, but we're going to talk about the Cavaliers as well. So I think there's a lot of misconception. Honestly, it seems to be around players too, but certainly around some fans, that like, what does having a handle mean? Sure, like being able to do what Steph and Kyrie can do, who have two of the best handles ever. Like, sure, you can make guys look bad. You can just completely cross them up. That's part of it. But really, here's what having a handle means. Because like Magic Johnson had a great handle for as it wasn't sexy, but he had a great handle. LeBron has a great handle. Kobe had a great handle. Jordan had a great handle. Now Jordan sometimes looks sexy, but like, it wasn't always. Um, Here's what having a handle means. It's the ability to reliably get where you want on the floor when you want to. That's it. That's what having a handle really is. Now, like a great handle, like what Kyrie can do, what Steph can do, what like some of what Jamal Crawford. Jamal Crawford had a great handle. Like, street ball style, but like also a fundamental great handle. I can get to my spots when I want to get them. You're going to try to stop me, and you can't because I'm in control of the ball. I have a handle on the ball. That's really where it comes from. And what you see with a lot of guys, and I think some of this comes down to youth basketball and the AAU circuits and not getting good coaching early. There's way too much focus on bag work and not enough focus on actually playing basketball. And again, I feel really bad from the industry, but for the injury, but we are going to talk about Jason Tatum. Like Jalen Brown can't go left. Frankly, that's a bit of a misnomer though, because Jalen Brown can't go right. Like from a handle perspective, he doesn't have one. He's a straight line drive guy, and he's got a little bit of a pull up game, but he doesn't have a handle. Like that's different. If you ball pressure him, he is not able to create space, get to his spots when and where he wants to. Like he has to work within the confines of the offense, move the ball out, move off ball, get moving, catch the ball, and then use his athleticism. He's a phenomenal athlete. And the little bit of control he has to try to get to spots or to get advantage and even blow by guys, but like being able to blow by guys is not having a handle. Really, having a handle is the ability to like handle it under duress and again get to your spots. Nikola Jokic has a great handle. He's a slow, plodding 7-footer. He looks clumsy and weird when he does it. Watch during a game. How many times does he struggle to get where he wants to get on the floor? Guys are trying to take the ball from him. They can't because he has a firm control. He has a handle on the ball. Now go watch Jason Tatum. Again, this is not about like flash. This is not bag work. Ooh, you went to a handles coach and he put you through a million dribbling drills and you learned sequences. That's actually the problem. And again, you see this on the AAU circuit, you see this in youth basketball, and it comes to modern players. And a lot of modern guys, like from a skill, you can do this sequence, you can dribble this way, you can do these moves perspective. A lot of these guys are way beyond anything from any era before. It's not close. But a lot of them don't know how to play. And in particular for Boston, Brown, but especially Tatum, like the Kirkland or Costco, Kobe stuff, it's where he gets in trouble. Jason Tatum, for his size and athleticism, and like the type of handle he actually has, which is like he should be a guy, he really shouldn't need more than like 3 or 4 dribbles ever. And this is not like a chair drill thing. It's he shouldn't need that. He can go above you, he can go through you, he can go around you, he can beat you straight line. He doesn't have a tight enough handle to really try to dribble by guys. You watch him, he's doing sequences. It's all about rhythm. He does sequences to get into rhythm so they can do his pull ups. That's not having a handle. Here's the easiest test of whether or not a guy has a handle. Have someone in the middle of your sequence predict what you're going to do next and go to break it up. If you can read and react the defender and get by them, get to your spot, get where you want to get on the floor, etc., that's the first sign of having a handle. If someone anticipating your sequence and pressuring you or intercepting the sequence or bothering it in that way messes you up, you don't have a handle, you learn sequences. Left, right, through the legs, pull back, step back, hesitation, blow, pull. Sure, he's 6'10", and he's got an okay, like he's got a solid jump shot. Like you might get some shots off. You don't have a handle. Here's where that really becomes problematic in the playoffs. In the regular season, you don't really game plan a ton, not hyper specific. In the playoffs, not only does it become more physical, which honestly they should really allow the regular season to be more like that. It's a much more enjoyable, better product, and it forces players to become more skilled and more efficient, which we'll get on in a minute. But because you're in those habits, and again, because you don't really have a handle, that ability to just get where you want on the floor, however it may look, efficiently and effectively, you have sequences in the playoffs because guys can be more physical and because they're very specifically game planning. in those high leverage moments, they can force you into taking bad shots, getting turnovers. Like we saw him get basically blocked at the end of the game in one of the games in the Knicks series. Well, the reason he got blocked, it was a great play by the defender, but the reason it happened was because he did a sequence. He had a lane. If you go back and watch it, he could have gone to the rim. He also could have, instead of doing what he did and trying to do the turn fade, he could have put a shoulder into him and then gone straight up. Create the separation with physicality and go straight up, and you're not going to get blocked the same way. By doing the sequence, you took more time and you were more predictable. That's why you got handled the way he did. That's one of the biggest issues for the Celtics. It's honestly, and we'll get into the second one in a minute here, but that's like it is their fundamental flaw. Their two best players can't really dribble when they need to. Doesn't mean they're not really good players. They won the championship last year because they had absolutely suffocating defense. They didn't beat the Mavericks because they were incredible offensive engine. Like, yes, they scored a lot of points, but that really relies more on the thing we're going to talk about in a second about shot selection. They rained threes, but a huge part of why they were able to rain threes is because they were so suffocating defensively. They ended up in transition. They ended up with advantage. You end up with a swing action. Guy gets an open shot in rhythm, hits a couple. Now the whole team has it going, and you can pile on. So you weren't in those high leverage situations often enough where you needed to have a handle to be able to counter that type of defense. When they went up against the Knicks, who played them physically and are kind of built to beat them, but played them physically and put them into those spots where the fact that you can't really dribble very well, either Brown or Tatum, the only guy on that team that really has a handle is Drew Holiday. Drew Holiday can get where he wants, but because as a team, they weren't so devastating defensively this year versus last year, you didn't get those easy shots, you didn't get into that rhythm, and you don't have that ability to get what you want. Now you look at the other side. Josh Hart actually has a handle. Like he's not a good offensive player, but he can get where he needs to help a play and then get the ball to someone else who is. Like he doesn't have the scoring ability to really do those things, but again, you don't see him dribbling the ball and getting pressured into mistakes a ton. Jalen Brunson is a phenomenal handler. He's fantastic at managing pace and timing and creating space and using off tempo and off platform movements and shots to create openings just because of his size. Fantastic handler, which is a huge part of why he's such an amazing closer. And in those fourth quarters, you really see it. Like when the game comes down to those times, his ability to get where he wants, 1-on-1 or even 2-on-1 at times, is the difference maker. And that's the component the Celtics lack. They don't have it from their centers. They don't have it from their wings. They're two star players, one of whom's a top 10-ish guy in the league. But they don't have that skill, and that skill has always been the great separator. Unless you are a center, even some of the great centers, Hakeem had a handle. Hakeem could catch it at the elbow, and it was, as Shaq loves to say, barbecue chicken. Shaq, people forget it. Like, yeah, he's an idiot on Inside the NBA, but like prime Shaq, like pre-Phoenix Shaq, even in Miami, but especially pre-Miami, like LA and Orlando Shaq used to run the break. Could break you down, pass, or go coast to coast. And like no one was taking the ball from him, and it wasn't just because he was so big you were going to get hurt. It was like no, he was under control. That's a handle. Like yeah, he's a 7-footer. He's not going to put you through a dribbling sequence like Steph. Wrong thing. This ain't the N1 mixtape tour. So Shaq had that ability. Like even centers have ability. Obviously, I mentioned Jokic has that ability. LeBron had that ability. Kobe had that ability. Tracy McGrady had that ability. Kevin Durant has that ability. Kevin Durant has a nasty handle. Again, not just making guys look bad, which he can, but how often do you see guys are able to force him away from his spots? If he wants to get somewhere, it's not just him being 7 feet. Giannis His ascension really started when he gained the ability to handle, when you could no longer just deny him the ball or pressure him. He could get where he wanted on the floor and like, I can get to the paint and you can't do anything about it unless you build a freaking wall, literally. That's Giannis's offensive ascension. Because now that he can get where he wants on the floor, the rest of those athletic gifts matter. If you can't get where you want, they don't matter. Now let's talk Cleveland, because I spent a lot of time on the Celtics. Same problem. Mobley hasn't developed a handle yet. He has the tools for it, but his style of play and how he operates, he's just not there yet. Like Donovan Mitchell was not the problem. Donovan Mitchell played great. Donovan Mitchell was not the reason why the Cavs got blasted by the Pacers. It's roster construction. Donovan Mitchell has a handle, but Donovan Mitchell is also a two guard, and he's not a wing. And yeah, they were a great defense, but they were a great defense that ran into a team that is built to attack a lot of what they do. Like they're going to push your foot speed. They're going to make you over rotate and do things that Cleveland's not built to do. But really, honestly, the bigger problem, even though they got sandblasted on offense, the issue for the Cavs was offense. It wasn't their defense. Like, yeah, sure, they got blasted, but a lot of that's because their offense, they have no one other than Mitchell who could get advantage. Like Darius Garland's a good player. He doesn't have that kind of handle. He doesn't have that ability to create enough advantage. And I think he was hurt too, so like obviously that hurts. But even when he's healthy, he's not that type of player. He's a good player, but he's not at a level, especially from like a handle and like creation standpoint, where he can be a difference maker in the playoffs. And you don't have any wings who can do that, and you don't have any bigs who can do that. So the only guy that can do it is Donovan Mitchell. And you can have a heliocentric player if they're transcendent. Worked for LeBron. It works for Luka. It works for Jokic. Transcendent players can be heliocentric and be perfectly fine. Non-transcendent players cannot be heliocentric. You have to have a roster with some guys who have multiple skill sets, or you have to be a incredible defense, like Boston was last year. For all the bombing from threes and all the other stuff they did, it all started with their defense. Their defense was so suffocating you couldn't score, which allowed them to get easy shots. And once they started raining, it was just a math problem. Which kind of leads us into the shot selection issue. So Cleveland and Boston, another thing they have in common is shot selection. Again, I'm not against the three-pointer. I think the three-pointer, I was a three-point shooter. Now I'm a 5'10" guy with a negative vertical. Like my coach used to joke, I don't jump, the ground dips because it feels bad for me. I could never really jump. I could pull from 28 plus by the time I was a freshman in high school. I could shoot. And after a freshman in high school, it didn't matter because 5'10" can't jump. Even if I can score, I can't guard nobody. So, like, I didn't do shit as a player. But, like, I don't have anything against threes. I love the 3-point shot, but this is also where you get into analytics. And I'm not against analytics. What I'm against is people who don't understand analytics talking about analytics. That's actually the more annoying thing. Like when Chuck and Shaq and all of them say, oh, yeah, analytics, I don't need no analytics. Yeah, you used to get scouting reports that would tell you, hey, this guy shoots this percentage on the left block and this percentage on the right. So make him go right or you're barbecue chicken. Yeah, that's fucking analytics, you idiot. That's all it is. Analytics is just contextualized and applied data. It's really that's all analytics is. It's been around forever. Literally. Like, been around for a long time. But efficiency, which is now considered correlative with it and with analytics or part of the culture, efficiency is a different thing. So the analytics myth is that the mid range is bad because threes and layups is more efficient. Well, Boston has stressed that, and Cleveland did too, and they both got dump trucked, partially because of that. So this is an issue of sample size. So threes and layups is what your offense should be built around if you're averaging out over an 80 plus game sample size. Because statistically speaking, over a large enough sample, if you shoot 36 to 38% from three, and obviously you're going to shoot a really high percentage on layups and dunks and free throws, you're going to be a way more efficient offense. But in a 7 game sample size, if you're shooting 40 plus threes and you don't shoot 40%, you're going to get your ass kicked. And that's what happens. In the playoffs, when you bomb away like that, variance is going to happen. And when variance happens and you don't have A, the ability, but also B, the tendency, the habits, and the structure to reliably get those mid range shots or put pressure on the rim to get to the free throw line, get those layups, etc. Like if you don't have those things, going back to the handle problem, you're done. And that's the issue they have. Both Cleveland and Boston were hyper reliant on threes, but they were hyper reliant on threes essentially from drive and kick. And they were over reliant on it. They didn't, Boston took it way too far. They shot a trillion threes. And again, it's not about shooting a billion threes, but we saw this with Houston years ago when they ran against Golden State. Yeah, Golden State had the best shooter ever and one of the best shooters ever. The Splash Brothers. Here's the thing: Golden State didn't lead the league in threes. Now they were the most devastating team from three. They didn't lead the league in threes. And while you pay attention to all the other stuff, they shot mid-range shots. And they had guys on the roster who were really, really good from mid-range. Steph is great from mid-range. Durant was great from mid-range. Livingston, before they had Durant, they sacrificed all their depth to have Durant. Livingston was really devastating from mid-range. They had guys who were efficient and effective from those areas and could attack the basket, get layups. Their whole system creates movement, and the overreaction to Steph creates a lot of easy buckets. So they could get efficient offense, and then when you overreact, they get open threes. And if you don't overreact, they just execute you to death. And Steph, again, having an elite handle makes a lot of that work because his ability to just straight up beat guys on his own, that's the final piece there. So, like, for all talk about the Warriors as a jump shooting team and a 3-point team, no, they were a great offense. Complete offense. They attacked you at all three levels effectively, efficiently, and with intentionality. Boston and Cleveland didn't have that because you don't have any guys outside of Drew Holiday and Donovan Mitchell are the only two guys on either of those rosters that can freaking dribble. Like they can really actually dribble. Not chair drill bullshit, but get the ball and get where you want to get, and the guy in front of you doesn't have a whole lot of fucking say in the matter. That's the biggest reason why both of them lost. You're over reliant on the three. And then when you're hitting them, you keep you keep shooting them, you keep bombing away. Well, if you go on a cold streak, if you miss eight possessions in a row and six of them are threes, here's the thing about threes. Again, the math says you only have to shoot 36 to 38%. Well, layups you're going to shoot closer to 50. Mid range, good shooters are going to shoot closer to 44 to 46%, somewhere in that range. Well, that 8% difference, and again, these are at aggregate numbers, but in a series, three-pointers not only have longer rebounds typically, but you're still missing more shots. So when you take a super high volume of those, what you're doing is you're predominantly creating more long rebounds, which is more leak outs and easy buckets for the other team, but you're also creating more misses for yourself. Again, over a large enough sample size, sure, it averages out beautifully, but in a limited sample size, which these weren't 7 game series, these were 5 and 6 game series. In a 5 and 6 game sample, a rough shooting stretch of 10 to 15 shots, in some cases, can literally decide a series. And when you're just bombing away, and again, Tatum's not an incredible shooter. Brown's not these are 36% guys. These are not 42% guys. Bombing away, taking 10, 12 threes a game. You look at the same thing on Cleveland. Mitchell did fine. All those other guys, high pressure, high leverage, more physical. Your legs are down. They're game planning for you. They're fucking up your rotations. They're messing up your timing. Those shots are harder. And then there's the mental aspect of the pressure. You start bricking like crazy. And when you brick, the other team gets to go out and run. They get the efficient shots. They get in a rhythm. They get going. And now if they can guard you, Even if you're up big, again, we saw this Boston and New York. All New York did was they just kept playing hard. Boston would get up big, and they would keep playing hard, knowing at some point there's going to be a 5 minute stretch where you can't hit shit. And if we play good basketball in that 5 minute stretch, your 20-point lead becomes a 5 point lead or gone. Well, now it's about execution. Now the game is close again. Well, we have a guy who can close games because we have a guy who can handle and get where he wants, and you don't. We like our odds in a close game, and that's what happened. And again, Indiana never got close because Cleveland couldn't hit anything, and Indiana is a hyper efficient offense that plays at warp speed, and you're bricking threes. You don't have guys who have a handle. You don't have guys who can get what they want. You don't have guys who can score efficiently. You don't have guys who can execute in the mid range. And again, part of the value of mid range shots, because 45% is still better than 36%. In a large enough sample, it evens out differently. But in a small sample size, it's a better percentage. But it's not just about the points. When you hit a shot, you get to set your defense. So you're more likely to get a stop, especially against a team like Indiana. If you cannot score efficiently against the Pacers, they will blitz you off the court. The biggest key to guarding and stopping Indiana is actually to score points efficiently so you can set your defense. If you let them run on you, you get smoked. That's what happened in Cleveland. It's roster construction and misalignment of skill sets, sure. Not having enough guys who can dribble, not having guys who are have that ability to in the playoffs, but it's more physical with the bigger game plan to get where they want to get. All of those things matter, but it really breaks down to shot selection. It's not that threes are bad. Threes are great. Yeah, LeBron took the Cavs to the finals 4 years in a row in that second run, and the last year basically arguably had his greatest playoff run ever. Like he was absurd. But they actually did it based on defense, and they had a heliocentric player who no one could guard. So sure, if you have that guy, you can be driving kick all day, every day. Then they still did some other stuff. They had dirty work guys. They Tristan Thompson, J.R. Smith actually turned himself into a really good defender. They did other elements that made them like that team work. But having the best player on planet Earth was the key. If you don't have that, you have to play good, smart basketball. Shooting 43s, if they're in the flow of the offense and you're hitting them, like on a hot night, there's nothing wrong with it. But if that is your main focus, if that's the entire scheme upon which your offense is built, is we're going to take 40 to 53s a game because math, well, let me introduce you to my friend sample size. We just changed your math, and that's why you got blasted. So there's that piece. And, like I said before, the last piece is really matchup. So again, part of this for Boston is they're not the defensive team they were last year. Again, Tatum got hurt, but they would have been down 3. They were down in that game. They were going to lose that game before he got hurt. Like they were going to be down 3-1. They're probably not coming back from it regardless. They choked away those first couple of games. Like that was all she wrote. Well, how did they choke away those games? They are up huge in both games. Sure, the bad shot selection and the lack of people who can dribble, all huge parts of it. Part of it's also the matchup. Thibodeau teams play their ass off. New York, with the additions they've made, having multiple wings, having a guard like Brunson, who in crunch time, like you have good enough players around him, you can't just put 3 on the ball. And he's a good enough passer. If you do that, like he'll pick you apart. But if you let him go one-on-one, especially in crunch time, he's going to cook you. And that's what happened. Like they're constructed to, if they can get you in a close game, they have a phenomenal crunch time player. They're good defensively, and they're pretty solid offensively, especially with Cat, because Cat can't guard anything. But he's a pretty good offensive player, especially when there's no pressure on him. Big Percy, not great under pressure. But when he's not the pressure player, throughout a 48-minute game, there's going to be pockets where he's really, really good offensively, and all those points count towards the total at the end. That's how they're constructed. They're constructed to, if we play our ass off and we can force Boston into one of those 5 to 8 minute stretches where they can't hit anything because they're just taking dumb shots and they don't slow it down, run an offense, get to the rim, get to the free throw line, like get back into an offensive rhythm because they don't really have guys who can do that. They're just hoping to shoot their way out of the slump the same way they shot themselves into the big lead. They're built to beat them. It was a bad matchup for Boston. If Boston had shot great, would they have won the series? Yeah. But that's the type of team that's going to beat them because they're designed to beat them because they attack all of their weaknesses. And they do have weaknesses. Everybody was talking, like, I saw people talk about, oh, they're an all time team. They could go against the 17. The 17 Warriors would sweep them. At most, it would go 5 games. And most of those wins would be by 30 plus. Like, let's just be real. Um, they would not have any struggle guarding Boston, and Boston would have no shot guarding them. Like, stop putting that just because, oh, well, they put up these numbers in the regular season. Yeah, okay. If you don't know enough about basketball to talk about roster construction and skill sets and like actually make these comparisons, be cool. Just stop listening to Scheme today. Don't listen to any of those people, but especially that fucking idiot. I don't care if he actually knows basketball or not. The shit he says on TV doesn't know shit about basketball. And if he does know basketball and he says that shit, he should be more ashamed. But anyway, Cleveland. What's the matchup for Cleveland? So Boston's issue with New York was offense. Now the interesting thing with Cleveland and Boston is the matchup problems are actually inverted. Everything else, it's a lot of the same issues for them, but the matchups are actually inverted. So Boston's problem was offensive. New York is designed to be able to give Boston problems from a defensive standpoint. Like over the course of a game, we're going to force you into a stretch where you just keep bombing shots and you're going to brick a bunch of them and we're going to get back in this game. And at the end of the game, we're going to be able to out execute. And they did it 4 times. Well, 3 times the last game. They beat their ass. Again, Tatum got hurt. Like, the series was over there. Like, I hope he comes back. I hope he's fine. I also I hope he makes some changes to his game. Like he could be a significantly better player if he stopped trying to do the dribble drill shit and the chair drill shit and trying to be Kobe and really just hyper emphasized on the areas where he's really effective and realize that you're not a great shooter, you're a streaky shooter. Those are different things. It doesn't mean you can't shoot and shoot and shoot. It means you need to add and focus on other things in your game so that when you don't have it going, because you're not a great shooter, you can still be an effective player. Like I really, really hope that Tatum does that because like everything I've ever seen about him, he seems like a great guy. But that was really their problem. Like their issue was offense. Cleveland had the exact opposite problem. Like again, like I said earlier, their lack of offensive ability is what led to their defensive issues. But despite that, Indiana is a horrible matchup for them defensively because Indiana pushes pace so much, but not just pushes pace, moves the ball, but also moves people. Because you're talking about we talked about handles earlier. Halliburton has a great handle. Gets wherever he wants in the court, always in control, really good point guard, but he can score as much or whenever he wants to. Like that's a sign of a great handle is the ability to do that reliably and consistently. Halliburton's ability to do that and the pace they play with, but they're not just a spread team. Like they'll attack the rim, they'll go to the basket, they'll get you in transition, like they'll pressure you. Cleveland isn't built to be a hyper switchable like athletes all over the floor defense. Plus, also you have Garland. Mitchell tries, and Mitchell's an okay defender. Garland's a terrible defender, and he's just too small. And then you put the two twin towers bigs. They do fine against Boston. I think they do really well against New York. Indiana is a horrible matchup for them defensively. Again, offensively, That's the reason they got the doors blown off of them is they couldn't score. But even if they could score, they're probably going to lose that series because they just don't defensively. They don't have an answer for Indiana, and it's not Mobley's fault. Mobley's a phenomenal defender. Mobley does fine. But it's you play defense 5-on-5, and you need five guys on a string, especially with modern basketball. Like it was a bit different, like in the '90s, where you had a lot of ISO, and yeah, you had hand checking, but like you had a lot of ISO, and you didn't have a lot of off ball movement. Again, this I don't want to get into the whole '90s rant, but you had a lot of great players, and there were some elements of those guys' game that a lot of modern guys need to go back and watch. And like, no, no, it's not just what he's doing. Like, sure, you're a better dribbler and a better shooter and other things, but his approach to the game, his understanding of the game of basketball is way above yours. You need to watch that stuff and learn how to be more efficient because your higher skill level should make you a better player. You ain't close. There's a lot of those guys. Those things are there. But the off ball movement is the big thing that actually murders Cleveland because Indiana is not just the pace and they're pushing it, but they're moving off ball, they're moving to their spots, they're creating that chaos, they're creating lanes, and you don't have the speed or the style to counter that. And so they were dead in the water. So that was a bit long, but I like to get nerdy about basketball sometimes, and it's kind of fascinating to me because like you look at the other really consistent, really good team this year throughout the regular season was OKC. Well, OKC is still alive in the playoffs. Why is OKC still alive? Well, number one, they had role players like Caruso. Caruso doesn't have a handle, but remember I said if you don't have multiple guys with handles, what it to be? A hellacious defense. You want to have a hellacious defense? Well, there's probably three guys, and Amin Thompson coming, but there's really three guys as far as like perimeter slash wing defenders in the league that are just an absolute nightmare to deal with on a night in, night out basis. Herb Jones, it's Drew Holiday, it's Alex Caruso. Doesn't mean there aren't other guys who are great defenders, but night in, night out, like the last several years, those three guys, everybody they go against, your numbers go down. They significantly impact winning defensively. And then they're smart players. They do everything well. That's the difference for OKC. But also, the other difference is their best player. Again, Donovan wasn't the problem. So, like, he played great against Cleveland. It was Garland. Like, I don't think I don't think Garland could be the number three or number four guy on a champion. He can't be the number two. He just doesn't have that skill set. He's not dynamic enough. He doesn't have the skill level to make up for the lack of dynamism. Just athletically, he's not that guy. Like he's a very good player, but he's not that guy. That's my thoughts on him. OKC doesn't like they don't really have a number two star. Like none of their guys have really fully blossomed. I don't think Chet is ever going to be more than like a 15 point per game guy offensively. Defensively, he'll be quite good. Um, we'll see on Williams, but the thing with their main guy is unlike Tatum and Brown, Shea has a handle. Shea can get where he wants on the court. Shea can get to his spots. And yeah, he is a bit of a free throw merchant, and that shit's gross, and I hate it. But the difference between him and a guy like Harden is Harden had the mechanical ability to be a great player in the playoffs before like his brain was just cook eggs. Which the later part of his career in the playoffs, it just has been consistently. Harden had the mechanical ability, had the handle, had the shot, had inside outside game, 3 level score, all those things. His issue was mental. Shea has all that, but Shea's style play, yes, he does the con man bullshit, which I despise. But Shea can choose at any time. I'm going to get to my mid range. I'm going to get to my spots. I'm going to get to the rim. I'm going to get out in transition, and he can score efficiently and effectively and consistently. So if you go through a bad stretch, you can give the ball to Shea and go, hey, superstar, go make something happen. And he has the ability to do it. Tatum doesn't. Brown doesn't. Mitchell does, he was filled by the rest of his team. That's the ultimate differentiator for OKC. Their best player has a handle, and in the playoffs and in that crunch time, his shot selection doesn't jeopardize his team. So just to sum it all up, yeah, matchups, like we'll do it in reverse order, but yeah, matchups 100% matter. Like matchups are a real thing, but it really comes down to shot selection and style of play and just not having guys who can dribble a damn basketball. Again, either a star and then a bunch of like pieces around them that are at least okay and can run an offense and can do a few things like OKC has, and they're phenomenal defensively, which offsets the you don't have a ton of like 20 plus point guys and guys who can just go off and get their own outside of the flow of the offense, but you're so good and so dynamic defensively you can create offense by getting out and running and getting easy buckets and creating advantage and doing those things. Your dominant defense makes up for that offensive weakness, but then also your superstar does have a handle, does have the efficiency, and does have the style of play that allows them to be effective in the playoffs. So you look at Cleveland, Boston, and OKC, only one is still standing, and those are the reasons why. Or, you could, instead of watching a 42-minute video, you could go to ESPN and you can hear, he just ain't good enough. Barbecue chicken. That man. Whatever dumb shit Stephen A says, where he doesn't actually say anything of substance. He just screams out a bunch of superlatives, says some dumb shit you can get from the average wino at pick your barbershop or bar, struts around like he made a great point. Anyone who's smarter than him on the show gets fired and then goes on about his business. You could do that too. But if you stayed for the whole video, I hope you enjoyed it. If you did enjoy it, the like, comment, subscribe thing for YouTube is always appreciated. Even if you're not going to like or subscribe, throw a comment in the comment section. Tell me what you think. And we will be back to football, but occasionally some basketball talk on here as well. This is Brian. This was Ranting and Raving. Hope you all have a good one.